Burp runs as a proxy in between the client and the server, so it can record all the HTTP traffic that it sees. It's got a no-frills UI, and it's clearly focused on function over form. In the Options tab, here are the proxy details. So I can set Firefox up to use the proxy running locally from Burp, which by default is on the localhost port 8080, and any calls that come from Firefox, including the REST client plugin, will go through the Burp proxy. This is the Firefox REST client, and I'll send a GET request to my API to get the list of spiders for a user. This request just hangs because by default the Burp proxy intercepts calls and keeps them waiting until you forward them on. Here's my request waiting in the Burp proxy. It's in raw HTTP format, and I can see this is a GET request to my URL using HTTP version 1.1. Because my REST client is running in the browser, there are some request headers going out which I haven't specified. Those are added by Firefox. I'll forward the request, which means Burp passes it on to my server. I've also got the proxy set up to intercept responses, so now I see the response from the API waiting in Burp where I can forward it back to the client. And there's my response, which the REST client shows in a much friendlier format. I can use the Burp proxy to edit the request and response, so I'll send that again and take out the user agent, which might be something I want to test if my API does content negotiation based on the type of client. Forward that on, and I can edit the response from the API before forwarding it back to the client. So if I want to test what happens when the response body is not in the expected format, I can change the content type header to XML, even though the body is actually JSON. Forward that, and the response goes back to the Firefox REST client. The response in REST client is the hacked version from Burp, so it looks like it should be XML. When I try to preview it though, I get an error because actually it's JSON. I can change any parts of the request in the proxy, so I can change the destination for the request. I can switch my SpiderLog API request to go to a different host, so I can use 503.badapi.net, which always returns a 503 service unavailable response. Now when I make the call, I get a 503, and the client is unaware that the request has been routed to a different host by the proxy.